Being recorded.
Okay, so continuing with a little bit of news. The U.S. and Israel that are running the Gaza Humanitarian Fund decided to halt operations for a 2-day period because they found that Hamas was stealing the food from people. And they wanted to get security, they wanted to shore up security, so that's what's happening. You may see it reported differently, but that's the story from Israel. Okay, so moving right along. In our Miller course last week, not the one day, but the Monday before, okay, they made a very interesting statement. They said that if you compare what we're looking at in the Torah these days, Leviticus, mostly some of Numbers, some of Exodus, you see a bunch of laws, a bunch of procedures. In fact, Leviticus has been called the manual of the Levites because that's what it is. It's a how-to officiate at certain offerings, if it's a burnt offering, if it's a Thanksgiving offering, a sin offering, a guilt offering, how many bulls, how many sheep, how many goats, right? Yeah, you're getting bored already, that's what I mean. So a lot of Jews have turned around and said, I like this Judaism thing, but all this offering stuff leaves me kind of, So where's the spirituality? In comes Kabbalah. Kabbalah offers that spirituality, how to get in touch with God, how to see angels. What did Matthew say? If you put sand on your eyes, you could see angels' footsteps, something like that. You wear like a red ribbon, a red string, right, for some reason, which prompted someone I know to say, if you're wearing a red string, don't they put a red string around the goat for Azazel that turns white when all the sins are forgiven? So why would you wear a red string? Things like that. But it does leave a certain question, okay? And that is, what does offering a goat have to do with spirituality? And it's a good question. How are all these laws going to make me more spiritual and therefore help me lead a better, more productive, happier life? Where is the bridge to that? Now, it has been said that the Torah is like layers of onion, okay? And some of you that are new to Torah, you're reading it, you're kind of getting a lot of information. And some of you have maybe read it a couple of times, maybe you're on your second or third time, and you're like, oh, wow, I didn't notice that before. And you see more and more as you read things. Now, some of that is just kind of plain understanding. I mean, you're taking it all in, and you're seeing it, and okay, now I'm seeing it. And now you've got a familiarity, so when you read it a second, third, fourth time, you already have a background. You have a base of information, and now you're going to not so much focus on the things you don't know at all, but now you're going to see certain nuances, certain things that are more of what you read. And that ultimately is what Kabbalah is supposed to be. It's supposed to be the ultimate level, the deepest level, okay? But let's ignore Kabbalah for a minute. Let's ignore that. Let's just say, okay, where is that bridge to spirituality? If you look in the Talmud, in the Tractate of Shabbat, and there's like 4 volumes, and it's all what you can and what you can't do. I mean, you can skip all the stuff and go to the Shulchan Aruch, which is a volume that was written about 400, 500, 600 years ago by a rabbi named Joseph Caro. Actually, he was the main guy that did it. There were other rabbis that contributed, but it's basically a list of do's and don'ts in Judaism. It's a manual, okay? And you can look at that and go, wow, maybe I don't want to be Jewish after all with all these do's and don'ts. But the point is, and this is something that in India, They do with the gurus. Okay, action, karma yoga, right? Enlightenment through action. And that ultimately is what Judaism is. It's enlightenment through action. Because when you do what God does, what God wants you to do, you become more like God. Okay? And we've talked about this. We've talked about the idea of kosher. Okay? Eat this, not that. Okay? What's it going to do? Well, for the one thing, it's going to remind you you're Jewish. You walk into a store, and the Rebbitzin and I are now in the habit of looking for that little OU or the kosher symbol, along with organic, non-GMO, and all the other stuff that food can be to make you healthy. And it's a constant reminder that you're Jewish. And that reminder that you're Jewish tells you that there are certain things you will do and certain things you don't do. Now, a lot of it is on the level of just feeling good. When the whole world is going off on each other and saying nasty things, and you read in the Torah, and I've seen it at least 8 times, don't talebear, don't gossip in one form or another, don't join with others in the commission of a falsehood, don't get together with everybody, how people in high school do, right? You just get out of 9th grade, right? Weren't there a lot of mean girls and stuff, or boys, they get together and they talk, you ever hear that? No, because you stay away from that, right, I'm asking the wrong person. But that's the way it is, kids turn 13, 14, and all of a sudden their bodies start to change. The next thing you know, there's the in crowd and there's the out crowd. Judaism doesn't say that. Judaism specifically says no. No, when somebody is new, you accept everybody. Everybody. Because lo yisagoy al goy charev. Nation shall not lift up sword against each other, but hine ma tov u'manayim. Here's how good and great it would be if people were to go, if people were to stay together as friends. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. If we were to act like brothers with each other and sisters, because that's what Judaism is. There's your spirituality. So, if you want to know what God thinks and what God wants you to do and the path to happiness, you follow the rule. You follow God's teachings. That's what Torah is. It's not laws, it's not rules. Commandments, mitzvot, okay, but it's really Torah means teaching. Teaching you how to be a good person. Because when you're a good person, you start to see the good in other people. And when you think about it, there's nothing more spiritual than that. What if, I could go to politics, but I need to always do that. So you know what I'm going to say, so I'm not even going to bother with it. But again, the way to making peace is to act peaceful. It's not about sitting around at a table and making concessions and, it's not even finding common ground. It's understanding someone's point of view. Now, we've all heard that it's a Native American saying, don't judge a man until you've walked in his or her moccasins. Well, that's actually from Pirkei Avot, the sayings of the fathers. And our version of that is don't judge a person until you've walked from their place. That's our version. And that's what it is. Don't judge someone until you've walked in their place, till you've sat in their position and you know what's going on with them. That's what it's all about. That's why Hillel, and I've heard many versions of this story, and I finally got to read it. It's in the Talmud, in the Tractate of Shabbat. It's something like 31a or something. But you've heard maybe the story. Some guy goes to Hillel and says, teach me the Torah standing on one foot. Right? Have you heard that story? No? Okay, let me repeat it for you because it's real fascinating. So back in the Talmudic time, there were 2 main schools, Shammai and Hillel. Shammai was kind of like the conservative Republican of his time. Well, let's leave Republican. He was the conservative. And Hillel was the liberal. And ultimately, Hillel's decisions won out And there's a couple of stories to that. The big story is that a voice from heaven rang out and said, it's Hillel's, will win. But actually, the down-to-earth reason is because Hillel students studied Shammai's studies. They studied what Shammai said and why, whereas Shammai just went to their own opinion. So a guy goes to Shammai's house, who was a builder, and he says, I want to convert to Judaism. Teach me the Torah while I stand on one foot. And Shammai took like a builder's tool and started hitting the guy with it. He did. That's the story. He started hitting the guy with it until the guy left. Anybody see the movie Field of Dreams? Right? Where, what's his name? James Earl Jones picks up the crowbar, starts walking towards Kevin, what's his name? Kevin Costner, and says, I'm going to beat you until you leave, right? That was basically what happened. So the guy goes over to Hillel's, knocks on his door, and says, explain to me, tell me the Torah. Teach me the Torah as I stand on one foot. Hillel looks at him and says, what is hateful to you, don't do to others. And Hillel converted him right on the spot. That's the story. It's in the Talmud. That's Judaism. What's hateful to you, don't do to other people. Could you imagine what the world would be like if we lived that way? People look for spirituality because they want answers. They want answers to life. Why is this happening? Why do I have to go through all these things? If you're living a happy, peaceful life, it doesn't matter. You can handle challenges. Car breaks down. You don't freak out. Well, what do I do to deserve this? Doesn't matter because you're thinking, okay, I need to call AAA, or I need to walk down the street to the gas station, or figure it out. I need to call whoever I'm going to go see, let them know I have a problem, and maybe that person's like, hey, you're right here, now come by and get you. Because that's life. That's how life is. You see these people that are always having problems, right? You know anybody like that? There's always something wrong in their life, right? And you're like, oh, here they come. Well, I got an appointment. I'll see you later, right? Then people that never seem to have problems. Their life is perfect. Now, their life is not perfect. They just never let their challenges. They just figure, okay, I'll figure it out, or I'll learn something new. I got tools. I know how to deal with it. They don't have to go searching for the answers. The answer's right in front of you. And that's what Judaism is all about. Just act like God wants you to act, and things will work out. It may take a while, but it will work out in its own time because you're headed in that direction. That's the way it is. And you can handle tragedies a lot easier because you're acting correctly and you know that things are going to work out. And if they don't work out, and people say, sometimes God's answer is no. God answers all prayers. Sometimes it's no. No. Sometimes it's no, I got a better plan for you. So just relax and we'll take care of it. And just go through what we're going through. So that's what we got to remember. That's your spirituality. When you're happy, when you're dealing with life, when you're doing proper things, when you're interacting with people with respect, things will work out. And that basically, in a nutshell, is what Judaism is all about. So you guys stand on one foot and go ahead and convert you right now. Don't forget about the other stuff. Okay. All right. I'm sorry? There you go. Pick the foot. Doesn't matter. I don't know what foot. I don't know if it's the right or the left. I don't know. It didn't say which one.
Makes sense though.
Yeah, doesn't it?